This episode explores sensitive historical topics, including violence and racist ideology, in order to examine the lasting impact of systemic racism in the American prison system. We strongly condemn racism and discrimination in all forms. Seth Ferranti here, your guide through the dark corners of the criminal underworld. As an outlaw filmmaker, author, and journalist, I've delved deep into the minds of gangsters, drug lords, and prison gangs. But my journey doesn't stop there. Let me take you on a thrilling ride as we explore the hidden stories and untold truths that lurk behind the prison walls.
A chance to see an AD put in real work was bigger than watching the Super Bowl for those inside the belly of the beast. And the brand didn't disappoint. They killed by bludgeon, prison-made knives, whatever they could get their hands on. They killed blacks, whites who didn't do what they said, and even their own members who got out of line. These dudes were vicious. They were violent, disciplined, and fearless. A prison official's worst nightmare.
They don't hide from the police. They're doing life sentences. Even if their guy was wrong, they ride with him. They don't fight fair. They'll all jump on you. Shit, they're like the Musketeers, all for one and one for all. They got makeshift sharp objects all over the yard, easy access. The AB's leaders read Machiavelli, Nietzsche, Sun Tzu, Tolkien, and the old standby, Mein Kampf. But the AB long ago subordinated its racist ideology to the acquisition of money. The leadership became much more interested in power than race and started muscling in on the gambling, extortion, and dope rackets. As part of its bid to exert control over these prison industries, the AB adopted a structure in the 80s similar to the Italian mafia, with a three-man council and a formal hierarchy that sent orders down the chain of command. Prison is where these guys live. We only punch the clock, a correctional officer says. If you are going to spend the rest of your life in prison, why not be an AB member? They live like kings. They were brutal warlords that maintained their position with an influx of drugs and unrequited violence. The brand eventually ran much of the drug trafficking, gambling, and prostitution behind the walls and plenty more on the outside. The gang operated as a full-fledged criminal enterprise. In the federal system, they established ties with jailed mafia crime bosses, associates from other gangs like the Dirty White Boys, Low Riders, and Mexican Mafia do their bidding. They flood every compound they're on with H, shipping the proceeds back to California to be dispersed between other jailed members and leaders of the gang.
The two commissions, one in California and the other in the feds, call the shots for the brand. Though never vast in numbers, the AB make up for it with their violent acts, which have led to a fearsome reputation. Their far-flung associates that number in the hundreds exert power on whatever prison compound they're on, trying to further the influence of the gang and get money.
Every day of the year, 20,000 men and women are jailed in California state prisons, 25,000 in county jails. Hundreds of millions are spent yearly to run California's jails and prisons, the largest system in the entire country.
In 1989, they built Pelican Bay. In 1988, they built Corcoran to take back control of the California prison system from all the prison gangs. And they didn't really succeed because the brand uses others to do their bidding on the main lines. In the feds, they have all the power of the brand locked up in ADX Florence, Colorado. Prison officials think that if they take the head, then the body will die, meaning the rest of these gangs will fall apart when they lock up the leaders. But the brand has been around a long time, so they have a lot of influence. Overall, they have slowly been losing control in both the state and federal prison system due to new cases, infighting, and age. A lot of the leaders are dinosaurs. On August 28, 2002, AUSA Greg Jessner indicted virtually the entire leadership of the gang. The indictment reached back 20 years, spanning 3 decades and 32 murders. 40 members were indicted of federal racketeering charges in a 140 10-count indictment. The majority of the gang members were already doing life sentences, so 23 of them were eligible for the death penalty. "This is a homicidal organization," Jessner announced. "I suspect they kill more than the mafia. They may be the most murderous criminal organization in the United States." A main component of the case was the ongoing race war with the D.C. blacks in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. The race wars in the federal system started on November 22, 1981, when the body of Robert M. Chappelle, a member of the D.C. blacks, was found outside of his cell at USP Marion. Thomas Terrible Tom Silverstein was the assailant, and Chappelle's shocking end worried Bureau officials who thought it might spark a war, which it certainly did. Raymond Cadillac Smith, the alleged national leader of the D.C. blacks, was the next person offed. Terrible Tom hit Cadillac on September 27, 1982, by poking him 67 times in the Marion Control Unit and dragging Cadillac up and down the tier so that those locked in their cells could see. The race wars against the D.C. blacks raged across the feds in the early 1980s and again in the 1990s, when 2 D.C. blacks lost their life at USP Lewisburg by AB members who stuck them over 40 times each. The feds accused Barry Mills and T.D. Bingham of ordering the hits at USP Lewisburg from their cells at ADX. Mills, Bingham, Silverstein, and 39 other members of the AB received life sentences on top of the life sentences they were already serving. The prosecutors won the case, but the jury refused to sentence the leaders to death for their convictions.